It is 9:10 at night on Wednesday the 12th of June 2024, and I am really excited to sit down and write my novel. I have been really excited to write my book for nearly every day for the last 2 to 3 weeks, and that makes me happy. And I would like to tell you about this book because I have a little feeling that this book might go somewhere. I am pretty sure that I will be able to finish at least the first draft of this book, but I think this book has the best chance of getting to a second draft and a third draft, and that makes me really excited. So I want to tell you about it, and I want to vlog the process, and I want to vlog about the fact that I am happy about writing, and I want to tell you about what has made that change. Let's talk about where this book started. I loved the Spiderwick Chronicles growing up. I loved goblins, I loved trolls, funnily enough. I love weird fairy creatures, I love creepy creatures, I love weird mashup hybrid creatures. I love beasts, magical weird beasts. The weirder the better. The lumpier, the bumpier, the creepier, the better. Like that's my jam. So it's no wonder that the Spiderwick Chronicles by Holly Black and Tony Dittelizzi fueled that fire to the extreme. Other books absolutely played into my love for weird and wonderful creatures, but the Spiderwick Chronicles are the ones that really, really stick in my head. Particularly the copy of the field guide that you could buy, which is like a little spin-off from the books, which was full of like full page, fully illustrated, gorgeous drawings and like scientific pictograms. I don't think that's the right word, but scientific diagrams and illustrations of all these just completely made up creatures that I loved, and I wanted to like rip out every page and stick them on my wall and just frame them. The art was beautiful. The only thing that came like even a close second to the Spiderwick Chronicles when it came to art and the monsters and the visualization of creatures like that was the Fairies book by Brian Froud that my mum had a copy of and that I've always coveted, and she eventually bought me my own copy a couple of years ago now, which I love. Brian Froud's art is just fantastic. I love the way that he draws goblins and trolls. Like it's just so up my street. I feel very strongly about it. And then obviously, because it's Brian Froud, The Dark Crystal, the film. Oh, those creatures, those puppets, the way that the mythics and the Skeksis like were designed, and Fizzgig. I fell in love with Fizzgig at a very young age. All of that, so completely up my street. I have always wanted to write something that had those creatures at its core. I kind of wanted to write like my own Spiderwick Chronicles. The plot of Spiderwick Chronicles, I don't really remember that well. I know they found a field guide and I know they discovered the creatures, but like for me, the plot was never the important part, it was the creatures. Ever since I started writing, have always wanted to create something to that scale, something that brought back that feeling in my brain that I got when I read the Spiderwick Chronicles. And I think I might have fallen on my first good go at that with this story idea, and that really excites me. So this book started in NaNoWriMo last year in November 2023. I have really only ever been super successful with writing when it comes to Nano. That is where I've got most of my ideas off the ground. I have never completed Nano. I've never done it traditionally. Did I do it last year? I don't think I completed it last year. I now can't remember, which isn't great. I'm pretty sure I got quite far in, but that is where it started. That's where I came up with the idea of fey creatures. I wanted to write something. I think I started with the idea of creatures popping from this world to the next. How does that work in my head? I wanted the creatures that I talked about to not be part of this world because I wanted the book to explore the concept of these creatures. I wanted the protagonist to go through the experience of learning about these new creatures and finding out about them and living through that awe and that wonder that I would be feeling as I created them. I took the concept of like a veil between worlds, but more watery. I really like the idea of it being the meniscus, like the curved surface of a pool of water. And the idea that if you just rippled it hard enough and you pushed hard enough, or you pushed enough energy into one particular spot, that the water would part and you could push your way through. So in this book that I'm writing, the veil is called the meniscus. It's that curved bit at the top of a test tube that I remember very clearly from science, and I really enjoyed the word meniscus. I don't know if it's entirely the right word for what I'm thinking, but I just needed something for like the surface of water. In this book that I'm writing, I wanted the concept of fey creatures not to be a completely uncommon one. So the idea that creatures have been moving between worlds on and off for a while, like that's where legends come from, that's where myths come from. Like the reason we talk about all these fantastic creatures that we made up is because in some way, shape or form, these creatures have come through a long, long time ago and either acclimated to our society or have been glimpsed and then disappeared, and stories have been born from those glimpses, words. I really liked the idea of like weird animals like platypuses or, oh my god, what's it called? Or binturongs or eyes, like really like slightly odd creatures, particularly like ocean creatures as well. A lot of ocean creatures could in fact be fey creatures, fey, like fey, F-E-Y, which have come from these other worlds and just sort of acclimated to our world and just live here now. I loved the idea then of there being a sanctuary, or at least one sanctuary, sanctuaries plural, for these creatures that have come across from other worlds and have got stuck here but don't necessarily belong. And I toyed with that idea for a long time. So I think the original story idea I had was that these fey creatures lived at the sanctuary. The sanctuary was going to be the main focus of the story. And I was toying with the idea of like there being a theft and them having to go off and find these creatures. And I wrote, I think at least a good like maybe 30,000 words of a novel based around a theft at this sanctuary, and it being a mystery of like trying to get these animals back, and there was like animal trafficking. And I just really wasn't enjoying that story. I enjoyed my protagonist a lot, who I called her Birdie. I had a very clear idea of her hair because I'm not very good at like abstract concepts when it comes to characters. I don't picture characters very well. I picture their like defining characteristics more than anything else. So Birdie to me was a big hench lady who liked to swing a big hammer, but she had 2 French braids that were really, really long. I had this idea for a scene where she was fighting some slimes with her best friend and pal who she hangs around with, and the slimes like melted off half of one of her plaits, so she was always a bit lopsided. I just really enjoyed that idea, so I kind of played with that a bit, and I wrote loads of that story, and it just wasn't hitting quite right. But the 3 things I really enjoyed Birdie, I really enjoyed the fey creatures sanctuary, and I really enjoyed Nanny Tig, who was going to be Birdie's grandmother, who ran the sanctuary and was like an infamous explorer, scientist, like person who innovated ways of capturing these creatures, looking after them, studying them. I hadn't quite nailed down what her field of like fame was going to be, but I really liked the concept of her and Birdie and the sanctuary. So Nano finished, and I kind of put it to one side. I thought, oh fuck it, that's just going to be another draft that sits in my never-ending folder of half-finished projects, and got a bit bummed out about it because that was the cycle for a very, very long time for me. I then discovered a channel called Kate Kavanagh Writes, which is Kate vlogging her writing, and she writes a lot, and she writes multiple whips at a time, and she live streams her writing, and it's like that is her hobby. And seeing someone take a hobby like writing and approach it the same way that I had been approaching reading as a hobby, with all the trackers, with the like the sprints and the I don't think a write-a-thon is a thing, but like all those sort of gimmicks and games to make it more interesting, sparked something in my brain. And currently Kate Kavanagh's videos are like my favourite ones to watch. I absolutely love watching her vlogs. They're so good, they're so inventive, she's so funny, she's always so cheerful, and I love her dogs. Who doesn't like dogs? But watching her write and the way that she approaches writing as a part of her daily life just sparked something in me, and the main thing that hit home was the fact that she has multiple works in progress on the go. Like for ages and ages, for me it's been, this is the story I'm working on, this is all I can write about, I don't write about anything else, I'm just writing about this story. And the concept of actually, I have a couple of other ideas floating around in my head, but I've not been doing anything about them because I'm working on this project. Like this is what I'm working on right now. I'm not taking the time to go go to one side and like work on something different. So I let myself start a couple of other projects. I have had an idea in my head about a woman my age moving into a new house and finding that the previous owner had been hosting a goblin in their house, and the goblin had to come to terms with the fact that the owner had died, and this house now belonged to someone else, and that sort of conflict there, and working out, like looking at the concept of ownership and like how they were going to coexist. Heavily inspired by the Spiderwick Chronicles again, because that was what was making my brain go buzz at the moment. The idea of like in the first book when the kids find and discover Thimbletack, but I wanted to make it a bit bigger, a bit grumpier, a bit more like actually quite dangerous. So I played with that, and I started writing that in diary form as well, which is something I've never really done. I usually stick to first or third person, but I inevitably end up sticking to third. Like, I've started so many projects in first person and just fallen into third, because it's like that's my natural tense. When I start writing, like I automatically go into third person. So writing that little project about the woman who moves into a house and finds a goblin there in diary form was refreshing. It was really nice. It was mostly a self-insert protagonist, because again, I was also just writing this for me. Like, I had no intention of talking about this to anyone, of showing anyone this. I felt like I had complete freedom to just write stream of consciousness. Like, how would I react if I moved into my house, this new house that I'd spent all my savings on, and there was a fucking goblin shacked up in there who didn't want me there and was actively trying to stop me move in and was like weighing in all my paint and like things like that. Like, it was so easy to write. It just didn't take any effort. And that's also a new phenomenon to me that was great. It was really refreshing. But I found that I could alternate projects really quite easily because they were so different. They were different tenses, they were different worlds. So I went back and I started writing the Fey Creatures novel, which I have, like, in my head it's titled Fey Creatures. From a slightly different viewpoint, I sort of went, okay, well, what if it's a bit different? What if it's less about the sanctuaries itself? What if somehow we bring the goblin market into this? And the goblin market is something that I've loved the idea of. Like, if a book contains references or scenes or even whole plot points regarding the goblin market, huge thumbs up from me. Like, I love books that talk about that. I love the concept. I distinctly remember the scene in Hellboy where they go to the goblin market. Like, that is what I picture. Come back in focus, please. I know it's getting darker, but I'm still here. I loved that. I loved that concept. So I started playing around more with the idea of like there being a sanctuary and there being a goblin market, and I found a plot. I found a plot that I really liked. I found characters that I really liked. I played around with the beginning and like writing the sanctuary scenes, sort of describing the animals, what do they do in the sanctuary. I went to the zoo for some inspiration, any excuse to go to a zoo. Realised I didn't quite know what I was talking about for like animal care. Like, I've looked after rabbits and cats, and that's it. I had a little bit of a hyperfixation on how to look after snakes at one point when I thought I was going to get a snake, and then I never did. But that's as far as my expertise goes. So I was struggling with that. So what I did in the end, I've always been a sort of semi-pantser, semi-plotter. I like to know a couple of like main pillar points in the future to sort of write towards. But I found that I get a bit bored if I know exactly what's going to happen. So I've never been a huge plotter. But this time, I sat down and I wrote 4 pages of plot, like 4 acts. I like the 4-act structure, and I understand it. So I stuck with that, and I wrote just, I took the Neil Gaiman quote really literally. I can't remember what it is exactly, but like something along the lines of write everything down that happens in the book and then go back and make it sound like you meant it to happen in that order, or something that like it was intentional the whole way through. So I literally sat down and I wrote down everything that I wanted to happen in this book, and then I shuffled it around until it made sense as a plot. I introduced characters, I wrote down the motivations, the backstories, like all the little tips and tricks. If there were any specific like aesthetic things that I wanted to include, I sat down and I wrote those down as well and made sure they were all in there. And then I came across another video by Kate Kavanagh where she tried an experiment where she tried to write more words tried to write more words than she had written the day before for as many days in a row as she could do it. And I think she managed 9 days. And I loved this idea. I like a challenge. I was dead set on the idea of not thinking about trying to get to like 50,000 words like you do for Nano. I didn't like the idea of having an end goal. I felt that was going to like box me in a little bit, because I get really anxious about like it being long enough, because I know my main flaw is that I don't write enough. In my head, I can see exactly what I mean and what I want to write down, but I never write enough words, at least the first time around, and I've never got far enough to like go back and flesh it out. Like that's never a stage I've got to. So to me, sorry, I'm just kind of, I feel like I'm a floating head at this point. I'm nearly done, I promise. So the idea of just focusing on writing more words than I had written the day before was a really appealing one. So I trialled it last week. I did it Monday to Saturday, and then Sunday's my rest day, and then I started fresh on Monday this week. I managed to write just under 5,000 words last week, and I've written much less this week, but that's because I knew I was having a rough week at work. Like I'm working 2 jobs at the moment, basically, because someone's off sick, so I'm covering their job as well as working my own. So I knew I needed more energy. I still wanted to write, but like I wrote 100 words on Monday, I wrote 115 words on Tuesday, and then today's Wednesday, so I only have to write more than 115 words today, which is spot on. I'm still excited to write. I'm still going to write. I just don't have to write a million words, which is great. And so far, I think this is a process that is really working, touch wood, but I'm going to keep doing this and just see if I can write the whole novel like this, because I know exactly what's going to happen. So there shouldn't be any point where I sit down and go, oh my God, I don't know what to write, because it's all there. Like I've got the 4-page plan at the top of my document, and all I have to do is write more words than the day before, and then I don't write anything on Sunday. Sunday's my rest day, because I do my reset and my meal prep and my food shopping for the week. And I'm very excited about that idea at the moment, and I want to take you along on my little journey to writing this book. And I don't know when I'm going to check in. I don't know how often I'm going to check in. I don't know how long it's going to take me, and that is okay, because I'm still excited. And it's that feeling of excitement that I want to cling to. And I've been talking for 25 minutes now, so I'm gonna shut up. I'm also just a head and a hand at this point. Hello. And I will see you in the next clip, where I'm hopefully in better lighting with more exciting things to say about this book. And maybe I'll talk to you more about the plot, because if I am gonna vlog this book all the way through, I'll go into full spoilers, I reckon, because it's nice to talk about it and not have to hide anything back. So thank you for listening. If this is your thing, stick around, and I will see you in the next clip. Hello, it is the 28th of July, 2024. I am 7,500 words into this manuscript now. And that whole writing more than the day before lasted about a week and a half before I gave up. The only reason that I'm on 7.5k now is because I did a little reading vlog where I challenged myself to write 2,500 words, as well as finishing off the books that I wanted to finish off. So that was a nice little boost of productivity, but I've not done anything since. I can't seem to keep a regular writing schedule going, which is a shame. I have this. This is like my little grid thing that I'm ticking stuff off on. I don't know if I had that when I first started this vlog. I don't think I did. And that's helpful. That shows me where I'm at. I've got that going up to 70k. That is not a goal. That is just a space for me to get there if I want to. I just want to get to like the natural end of the first draft. I think the main reason I don't sit down and do it is because I know that I have to think stuff up on the spot. I know what the main pillars of my plot are now. I'm pretty happy with that. I made a little tweak to the beginning, but I've already written past that tweak, so that's not even an excuse now. I just have to sit down and I have to put the words on the page, and that is a pain in the ass when I could be reading or gaming or sleeping. Like, I'm on holiday. I don't want to spend it writing, because that feels like work. But at the same time, my brain is full of all these ideas that I want to put in the book, and I want to read the book. I want to read the finished product. So I literally feel like I am being pulled in half by my brain. Rah! Irritating. Very irritating. I hope I have written more when I next update this vlog. So, a little writing update. Today is the 3rd of September. It's been a minute since I updated you, but I've also done some things. in that time. I'm winding wool. So I am at 19,000 words, nearly 19,500 words. I have changed a couple of things, but I have stopped deleting what I've written before. I've come to the conclusion that NaNoWriMo has kind of ruined my idea of what it means to write a first draft, because in my head, you just write words. You just get to 100, like not 100. You just get to 50,000 words and that's it, that's your first draft. That definitely doesn't work for me. I have come to the conclusion that what I need to do is keep writing and just keep writing until I reach the end, and it doesn't matter if I write the beginning 4 times. All of it goes on one document and I just keep writing until I reach the end of my story, because I am moving forward in the story, but I made the decision that like I was going down a much more like techie route, because in order to find the Goblin Market there was essentially this like SWAT team and this branch of the government that had these devices that could open passageways, and like that was all just feeling a little bit too sci-fi for what I really essentially wanted to be a folksy, creepy story. In my head it's just Brian Froud and Alan Lee drawings. That's all the inspiration is in my head, is Brian Froud and Alan Lee. Obviously a little bit from like Labyrinth or The Dark Crystal, or like that kind of like puppety goblin-y vibes. That's where I'm going with in my head. And having like a device that messes with frequencies to open portals just really didn't work, so I changed it and I went back to my roots. And by my roots I mean the fairies book that I cherish above all other books in my collection, and I read it cover to cover for the first time and wrote down a bunch of notes and inspiration about how I wanted to do this, because it talks about fairies in there, it talks about the different stories and lore and things like that, and that is what I want to base this story off of. I also simplify things. I think, I can't remember if I made this decision last time, but I think at one point I had her going to rescue her dad from the Goblin Market, but I changed my mind. It's going to be her going to rescue Nanny Tig, because Nanny Tig is the other character that I'm really interested in writing. So what she's done is she's gone to visit the Goblin Market because she's getting old, and this is her like area of interest, and she wants to go and see it before she dies. So she goes, but she gets trapped in the market, and Billy, our main protagonist, her granddaughter, sees this but isn't able to get her out in time, and we start the story 7 years later when the market is due to appear again, with Billy heading into the market to find Nanny Tig, to get her out and to work out what's happened. It is unclear how much time has passed, because I haven't done the maths on how I want that to work yet, but it is a rescue mission to get her gran out of this creepy market. And I've decided that I want the market to be, so it only appears every 7 years, and when it's there it only lasts for 3 days and 3 nights, but time is also a little bit wonky, so I'm having fun playing with things like that. So my secondary character Dara, who is a changeling, the twiggy thing that gets left behind, she is a changeling, but the magic has lasted much longer than it was supposed to, so she sort of gained sentience and a conscience and is looking for the baby that was swapped for her so she can give it back to her parents, essentially. I want her to have her own point of view, because, hello, my camera died on me, so I don't actually know where I finished talking, but essentially I have made some changes that make me feel more excited and happier about the story, and I think that's a good thing. And while writing is going slowly, I have a new buddy that I wrote with, which is great, and that's really helpful, because we literally decide, okay, we're gonna do half an hour, maybe an hour on this time, at this time, on this day, and I've been doing that once or twice a week. So steady progress, if not lots and lots of progress, and I think that's okay. I think that's a healthy way for me to do writing. I really think being introduced to writing via NaNoWriMo just ruined and rotted my brain a little bit, so I feel like I'm teaching myself my own method and the ways that work for me, and it's a slow process, but it's a positive process. If you follow any like YouTuber writer people, could you recommend them for me down below, because I'm trying to like build up the base of people that I'm following, because I follow a lot of book talky people and that's great, but I'm more and more interested in watching YouTube videos about writing and how other people write and what other people's processes are. So if you have any recommendations, please drop them below. That'd be really, really helpful, and I will check in with you when I check in with you next. I've not used this pro video setting on my phone before, and it just looks like they've upped the contrast, and that's kind of it. So cool. Anyway, here's a writing update. It is the 26th of September 2004, and I am currently on 23,838 words, and that is because the other day I was so bored at work I wrote 3,024 words in a day, which is bonkers, and I don't think I've ever written that much in a day before, ever. So proud of myself for that. I have also, because I was still bored, plotted a graph of like cumulative word count versus like how much I'm writing in a day, and it looks like this. I don't know how well you can see that, but it looks like that. So I think that's pretty cool. And I like seeing this bump and this bump because I think that's cool. I have not written anything since. I'm definitely a like bursts of writing kind of person. I don't think I'm the sort of person that does writing every day. I don't think I can get into that habit. I'm not sure that's for me. But the writing thing that's been on my mind recently is that November is coming up, and October if you used to do Preptober, but we don't do NaNoWriMo anymore because NaNoWriMo is, no, we don't do that. So I'm looking for a new group person's activity to jump on to do some writing and to prompt myself to do some writing in October and November. And I have just seen Kate Kavanagh's video. I haven't watched it yet, but I've just seen Kate Kavanagh's video where it looks like she's going to try and write 100,000 words in the last quarter of the year, which starts next week after next. No, I think it is next week, Christ. Oh my God, it's next Tuesday. Tuesday is when October starts. So I really need to work out what I'm doing this year for like a writing challenge, because I want to do something. I feel like I've got a good chunk of this first draft done, and like in an ideal world, I would go ahead and finish that in like November or whatever this writing challenge is. But I have been taking this slow. Like I've been writing this since May, something like that. I don't know that forcing myself to do like a giant chunk of words in one go is necessarily the healthiest choice to make. So we're toying with the ideas at the moment, and you will know in a couple of seconds what decision I have made. I am still making that decision. See you in the next clip. It's been a minute since I updated this vlog. Today is the 28th of October 2024. I have just hit 26,000 words on the draft, but that is only because the last 1,000 words were a complete rewrite of the plot. Look at me. It's what I do best. So what happened was I had got all of my characters introduced and in the room and went, oh, now what? Like their motivations don't necessarily lead into good writing things. Like, yeah, we've got my two protagonists together and they've gone to the hag, but why would the hag just tell them where to go? That doesn't really make sense. I need more like reasoning and logic behind those decisions that these people are making. And I was having a bad brain time at the time, so I was just like, right, we're going to stop. We're just going to stop. And then my sibling came round, who also writes prolifically. I say also, I don't write prolifically, they write prolifically, like got their manuscripts bound nicely so they can read them and stuff. So they came to visit Ratty, the cat. They were here for the cat, they weren't here for me. And we sat down and we just discussed my plot and picked it apart and rejigged it and twisted it and manipulated it and chucked out loads more ideas for a solid like 2.5 hours until we came up with like most of the plot that we were happy with. And then me being me, I slept on it, changed a few things, they went home, and now I have a whole new plot. The general gist of the issue, I think, was that I was trying to make these two characters, Billy and Dara, be equal protagonists, and they were going to both meet at the beginning of the book, and that just wasn't working. So Dara is now a goblin child instead of a changeling. It's still technically a changeling, but like she's not made of twigs, she's just a goblin child. Billy is still the protagonist, but Billy is going to go in and find... I can never remember how much of the story I've talked about on here. She's going to go in, she's going to find her gran. No, she's going to go in with her gran into the goblin market together. It's like a granddaughter granny holiday. Granny's going to get taken by the goblin boss. Billy is going to have to work out how to get her back. And in doing so, in doing like impossible tasks for the goblin boss to try and get her granny back,
Then she's going to meet the hag and the goblin child who's working for the hag. That just made more sense to me because it is a more natural way of pulling them into the story. It's less forced. It's more like it follows their motivations better, if that makes sense. And I can still get in my like tasks trope. I can still get in weird hijinks in the market. It was originally going to be a goblin king. Now it's like a goblin boss because in my head, kings rule under the market. And we're not actually going to be in the market if we're always under it in the like court of the Goblin King. And I want to be in the market. The market is what I'm interested in. So I've moved him into like Goblin Boss, mafia style maybe. I'm not a huge mafia person, but that side, he runs the market. He's in charge. Everyone defers to him, pays tithes to him. And that way we're in the market the whole time. And there's no going, like, we don't have to leave that location until maybe the very end. But I'm not going to tell you the end, because I haven't got there yet. But now I have nearly a whole plot that I think I'm much happier with, that I think makes sense. And we're going to write that one. And we're going to start again. And we're just going to write that one. This book has been through so many iterations. If you are also a writer, can you tell me if this is normal? Do you do this too? Do you just keep rewriting the sodding thing? Well, the only changes I've been making since, like, from past drafts is that I'm not creating a new document every time I'm, like, rewriting. I'm just keeping it all on the same document. So those 26,000 words, that is literally just writing out the plot and then writing out the story of the plot and then changing my mind and then writing out new plot just after that and then writing new story for that plot. Like, when they say draft zeros are messy, they're not fucking kidding. And I don't know where mine sits on the scale of messiness because I don't have that many other writer people that I talk to. So it's just, I just want to finish this first sodding draft. I want to be able to write plots that make sense because that is what draws me back. And that is the same thing that I complain about in every single sodding video. There we go. There we go. That is my update. I have a fringe now. You will probably already know this because this is not going to come out for a while, I don't think. Yay me. Let's see if I feel more enthusiastic about writing now. Hello, this is me rounding up this vlog because I have now got my plot for what feels like a brand new take on this novel, and I feel like this vlog has been going on for a while. I think I started filming this in June. It is currently the 1st of November, so I can't even remember what I put in this vlog. I can't remember where I was when I started, but at the moment I feel like I'm making a fresh start. So I'm going to end this here, but if you've made it this far, thank you very much. I would like to know what you think of when you think of goblins. Do you think of a specific media piece? Do you think of, like, do you have a particular mental image in your head? What do you think of when you think of goblins? Do you think of the goblin market? Do you think of Labyrinth? Do you think of, like, D&D goblins? Like, what is your goblin, for want of a better question? Tell me, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what you picture, what colour they are, how big they are, how small they are, what's their role in their world, how do they live, what's their culture? Because I have multiple ideas of what goblins are in my head, and I've picked a particular type for this novel, but I'm really interested to hear what you guys think of when you think of goblins. And yeah, let me know. Drop a comment below, and I will see you in the next episode of this writing vlog because I'm still going and I will keep filming and we'll see where I get. At the moment, it is the 1st of November, and I think I've just crossed the 27,000 word threshold because I'm still doing it all in one document. 27,268 words is where I am leaving this for the minute, and I will come back to you in the next episode. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.